Another cheap, imported AliExpress radio. Hello everyone. Today a brief review of this, another cheap imported AliExpress AM/FM shortwave radio. This arrived maybe a couple months ago, and I ordered it maybe a month or two before that. As is the case with most AliExpress orders, it took a little while to get to me. And like every other AliExpress order, it was quite cheap. It was almost as much to ship it as to purchase the radio. Altogether, it was around $11. It came, in this case, without a box, just in the flimsy gray packaging, wrapped in bubble wrap. Had the USB charger cable with it. And as I can recall, no instruction manual. Though maybe I misremember and I've misplaced it, but it's such a simple device. I don't see why that would be needed. The name here at the bottom, I'm assuming that's Nintaus, Nintaus, something like that. It's trademarked. Little symbol there. We have some writing there. Maybe I'll try to put a lens translation on the screen for that, as well as for this information. So on the front, we see the grill, we see the sticker with information that I can't read. We see that there is a analog display set up in a not very user-friendly manner. But it is a digitally tuned radio. It's using a chip. And I begin to suspect that most of these, or a lot of these, a good chunk of these Chinese imported radios are all using the same chip or a very similar chip for tuning. And the circuitry is pretty simple, and they just put it in different casings to make it look like you're getting a variety, although sometimes the frequency ranges are a little different. This one, if you look at it closely, shortwave supposedly goes from 2.3 megahertz up to 22. Now, on a digitally tuned but analog display radio, it's difficult to see what segments of that you're scanning through. I tend to doubt it's consecutive through that. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it's just the major kind of broadcast bands there. We also have FM 87 to 108 and AM 522 to 1620. So it stops a little short of the upper end of North American medium wave transmission. Oh, it's this kind of cheap gold color. It was also available in black, but I wanted the full experience. Look how nice that looks, though, with the standout red wristband wrist strap that came attached to it. Anyway, so we have the selector FM, AM, shortwave 1 and shortwave 2. Look at how thick that quote-unquote needle is to tell you where you are and kind of how far removed from, say, the shortwave bands. So if you get sort of a vague idea about where you are on the dial on this radio, which is okay. It's kind of a toy, and that's okay. We do have a light here. It's labeled as light. I believe it's only for, it tells when it's on or when it's charging, I believe. We have a headphone jack, which seems to be analog. Sorry, I've put a little charging, magnetic charging nub in here, but if I can get that out, I do this on a lot of my radios so that it's easier to charge multiple devices. Look at that. For this cheap radio, we have Type-C USB charging. I thought that was interesting, and while we're on that subject, another interesting bit about this is two methods of charging it or of powering it. Two AAA batteries, or this Mondo 18650 battery they put in here, supposedly 4,800 milliwatt hours. I'm not going to say they lie on things like that, but I'd be real surprised if it was actually a 4,800 milliamp hour battery at the price point we're at here, although they did include USB-C charging, so it could just be that this is a relatively well-equipped radio at this price point. The antenna is unimpressive, less than a foot. I'm going to say that's about 9 inches, 10 inches tops. On the right side, we have the tuning wheel, which is a little stiff, but not bad at all. And then the volume and on-off are on the wheel here. The left side is nothing, bottom is nothing except it passed QC. These hard raised feet for it to sit on, and it does okay sitting up. Does not have a kickstand. I apologize. Does not have a kickstand. Does not have what so many of these cheap radios seem to have these days, an MP3 player. Does not have a USB input for that or SD card. No MP3 player function, no screen, nothing digital at all about this except for the tuning internally. So let's put up the antenna. The antenna does not swivel, it just raises straight up. It does not swivel in any direction, and it's, as I mentioned, small. Let's turn it on, and I'm not going to linger on any music stations to avoid problems with copyright.
It's because he saw the church in the first century struggle. Dylan flat out. One clear fit.
Locks onto stations as good as you'd expect for a
That's Revelation, Jude, 3rd, 2nd, 1st John.
DSP chip.
Payroll services in New.
Game presents a tale walked and so.
Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young.
Call them 614 New Roof or New.
This is Selena Gomez. I can appreciate
Honda. A PC prop. Base ends Monday. To learn more.
The Area Pollen Report is brought to you by the Cove Coffee Shop.
All right. It locks onto the stations really well, like every radio of this type on FM. On AM, I did not crack it open and take a look at the AM antenna internally to see what size that is. I don't expect much on AM, plus I'm assuming it's probably set up for international, not U.S. markets, based on the numbering there. So it's probably on a 9 kilohertz rather than 10 as you would have in U.S. markets. So yeah, not getting much here. It's around 6 p.m. local time in central Ohio, central-ish Ohio. I'm not going to get much on shortwave for that reason. I'm going to probably at this point break in with a trial of the shortwave at night. Include that here. If I remember to go back and do that. I'm not using any external antenna other than the whip, the small aerial here. So I will break in with the test of this after dark on shortwave. and then come back for my final thoughts. All right, it's sometime after 9 p.m. local time, Central Ohio. Sun is down. I'm too old to stay up too late, so we're going to try this now. I'm going to do shortwave. I'm using a long wire antenna, about 20 feet total, wrapped around an upstairs window. We'll see whether we get anything. So many frequencies crammed into this short traverse that I'm going to probably be just skipping over things. Supposedly it starts at 2.3 megahertz. There's something there. There's some time signal.
Others think that it was a prophetic anointing that came on him. John is saying, I was in the Spirit. I'll tell you what it says to me. That he was worshiping the Lord
I
so
would have
fervently.
guessed that was like 4840, but it's hard to tell by this dial.
Trabajadores extranjeros en Taiwán carece de anticuerpos.
Subrayó también que la Boniato y aquí en La Habana no hay gas. What I think.
For me.
Returning to blood. And sure, I come outside and I'm looking at a red moon. I don't know if everyone knows this.
Abel Lázaro Machado Conde y Williams Valera Suárez.
For individual donors, many of them, they do it for passion or for love or just for the good old days memories. And many of them also want to use it to encourage more. lancer une usine d'Est et un centre de la technologie de l'information sociaux de l'environnement.
Amateur radio. Time signal.
I see 100 yellow ribbons round the tree.
Okay. I don't want to take too much time with this.
Need to be cut. But I'm asking, see, Johnson, he had none of the
I'm trying
trappings
to
that we
find out
have.
what that is to see how
No
close
freight
the
team, no instruments,
dial is.
no fellowship, no building, no comfort, no air, no heat. He had nothing except a damp cave and alone with God. I was in the Spirit. I was worshiping Him. I was praising Him. I was thanking Him. In spite of my miserable condition, I was thanking Him. I was praising Him. Yes, I'm using a rock for my pillow. And yes, I brought bare necessities out of Ephesus with me.
Can't find my volume. There
And
it
yes,
is.
I have cave. No, I don't have somebody bringing me meals every day. I don't know if God, listen, I don't know if God fed him the way he did Elijah or not. I don't know. Did he send
Does
him?
that look like it's pointing to 4840? Maybe a little bit
I
off.
don't know.
That giant, thick dial.
Did John just wake up and
By the way,
food on the floor of the cave? I don't know.
new knob
But I
came
know
in.
this.
Works fine.
He did not let his
More on that
situation
later.
nor his circumstances detract from his worship of the Lord. He was focused.
So I'm going to say the shortwave on this radio is no worse than any other similarly priced radio, $10 to $15. You can find a number of those at that price range, and this is at least as sensitive on shortwave as any of the others in the market. Maybe not quite at this level with analog tuning. It's just a little more fun, but not bad. Back to my final thoughts now. Okay, so didn't talk about the size really. Very similar in size to most of these other pocket radios. Here's the ever popular Retecus V115. Very similar in size to that. It's a little fatter. Not as well equipped as the V115, and the sound isn't as great as this Retecus radio. This does all right, but the sound isn't as great as you get in this. And this has the MP3 player, etc. Very similar also in size to the Chibo KK9803, one of my favorite little radios. This one actually is all analog tuning, worth getting for that reason. Also doesn't have any of the MP3, all the extra digital stuff, but if you had to choose between these two, I'd go with the Chibo for a similar price. Also on AliExpress. But a couple of positives on this. The FM reception is perfectly good. It's as good as any other portable radio I've had. So if FM is your thing, great. If you want to listen to medium wave, AM, that is. Not really recommended in the US because of the stepping in 9 kilohertz, presumably rather than 10, accounts for poor AM performance on this. Shortwave, hopefully I've demonstrated that and you can make up your mind based on that. But pros. It's just kind of cool looking, different looking, and USB Type-C charging is a plus, although I use these magnetic things in all my radios, so it doesn't matter as much to me, but for you listening at home, that may be a plus. It just means it's a current product, although maybe it's kind of a Frankenstein radio where it's coupled together. And then 2 ways of powering it. That big, powerful included battery, or the option to use 2 AAAs. Pretty cool. Snazzy wrist strap. I mean, that's a selling point. Look how nice that looks. Just complements it so nicely. So recommend it. I mean, get it for $10 on AliExpress. You're not wasting $10. It's a fine radio for that. Doesn't have any of the extras, but it doesn't try too hard. And with the charging option, the powering option, kind of neat. I like it. I give it a thumbs up, but again, there are probably better options as far as a pure radio, or one with a little more functionality. There you go. The Nintaus AliExpress cheap imported Chinese radio. Get one or not. That's all I have to say about that. Thanks for watching this brief review. Hope to see you here again next time.